I've been covering digital ID, CBDC, all that kind of thing in part one. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go and look for part one. So in the last live, we laid out the nightmare, the digital blueprint for digital IDs, central bank currencies, the control grid. We exposed some of the players, the lies, and pretty much their end game, which is, not the best thing. Uh, so, a fair few people are leaving pretty angry comments, which is fair enough. I think it's today's going to be a little bit more positive. I've got a little bit of info I couldn't get through last week, which we'll get straight into at the beginning. So there's some good news. It's not all bad news. So I'm just going to click play here, get this thing going. So we're going to cover, starting with the UK, because they're the biggest deal at the moment. In the UK, they've been pushed a mandatory digital ID. They're saying it's voluntary, but you can't work without it. So this is in play. So I've had over the years I've covered this, and I've had a lot of people telling me, nah, it's not going to happen ever. They've been talking about it for 20 years. Well, it's kind of here now. So it's time to kind of wake up and get your gear on and take a side. I don't think you can sleep past this one. If you don't really care yourself, I would be interested for your kids or grandkids or anyone on the planet who you might even know, because this is turning into a bit of a nightmare. So I'll just start the video in the background here, so you can see that it's a petition against Stammer's digital ID card in the UK, and it's hit over 2 million. It's actually more than that now. I think it's about to crush 3 million. Excuse me. Point being, petitions and protesting in the streets doesn't do anything anymore. I think everyone's pretty aware of that they don't really care, the powers that be. So a petition, it's something. And being that they've had 3 million people in the UK, or close to it now, sign up against the digital ID, they should take a bit of note of that. But they've even admitted themselves that they don't care about petitions, and they're just pushing ahead and doing their plan, which makes a lot of them a lot of money. Like in the part one of this series, we dealt with Tony Blair sort of straight up, and how his family is making billions out of this. His son is basically involved, a whole family is really involved, and they're all, cashing in big time. The son makes the cards and stuff like that, so, they're keeping it in the family, which is pretty typical. So this is all about making, rich people more money at the end of the day, but more importantly, it's to control you. So I take this as a threat, the whole thing. So I'm just going to click this one along so we can see that they've got their digital ID card plan, and I'll just get up some of the info where that petition's at the moment as well, just so we can see. The last time I saw it, it was like 2.7 million, that kind of thing. So yeah, this is just running through some basic stuff, just saying that that Stammer's proposed this, he's pushing ahead with it. With all the other chaos in the world, like, the cost of living, if the politicians actually gave a shit about us, you'd think that'd be a bit more of a priority. Like, he's kind of using this as immigration. So he's saying that to stop illegal immigrants working in the UK, this has to happen. All right, so we've got petition up here. So you can see it's the UK government and parliament. We don't want to introduce digital ID cards. So we're heading up to 3 million people, and this was actually captured yesterday. So I've got too many browser tabs open to be bothered flicking through them to see exactly what it's up, but let's assume it's up another, 50,000, maybe 100,000 overnight. But again, they don't have to take this on. Like, the government doesn't really care. They've put out a statement saying they don't care about petitions, and especially this one. They have their agenda and they're going to stick to it, and that's what they're doing. Alright, so we'll move along. Pull up the next one. I'll just show you. I don't know if you can see the web address for the petition, so you can see it yourself, petitionparliament.uk. If you're interested in going over and having a look yourself, seeing what it's up to. So pretty easy to access. If you can't read that, it is a little bit small. The browser, writing up there. Just type it in Google, Petitions UK, and it'll probably come up as probably the most popular one, I would say. Yeah, so it was a big week with the UK coming out and basically just shoving this down people's throats. And again, they're all in cahoots, they always are. And now, this bit's interesting. So, anyone who knows the WEF and all their plans, it's all connected. This is all very much to do with digital ID and basically probably resetting normal currency. So we're forced into central bank currencies. Again, we covered a lot of this in part one of the live that I did last week now. Now, this is the good news, all right? So it's not all doom today. And it isn't anyway. The people have the power, and when we wake up, when enough of us wake up, this won't be a problem. But until that time, when people actually get the shits about this, we'll have to endure some hardship maybe. So this is a fresh blow to Stammer's introducing his digital ID card, because at the end of the day, like, this is all about money, like we've already said, and people want to make a lot of money off it, and the way they make money off it, well, it's endless at the moment. They're making a lot of money off it, but it's to do with companies. Like, if they don't get the support, because they're the government, so that they couldn't organise a route in a brothel. So that said, they need private corporations to help them with all this kind of stuff. Just like during COVID when they had passports here in Australia, where you had to wave your passport to go and buy food or whatever, which FYI I didn't do, and I never had one, and I didn't carry my phone, and I didn't do any of that crap. No way. But that was a test run, and it worked. I would say they came out clicking their heels together, watching everyone just line up, like sheep, just, to the slaughter. So back to this. So the corporations are heavily involved and have to be heavily involved. Now, one of the largest corporations in the world for data has basically said no. Which is really good. The government themselves was claiming, like only last week, that that at the end of the day, people approve of this, and they claimed that they had a vote, and 53%, I think it was, of the UK said yes to a digital ID. Now, I don't believe it. Like, who would say yes? It's like if I went down and polled down the street and said, I'm going to strip you of all your freedoms, do you agree? I don't think 53% of people I would talk to would say, yeah, mate, yeah, for sure. So don't believe them. Like, government, if any of their mouths are moving, they're lying. It's just bullshit. So again, this is really important and really critical, because the company who's basically like Plantineer, they are massive. They have military contracts, say, for Israel and Ukraine and all different people. They basically are the people who data mine, buy all the data, and they put it all together. So they funnel their information to whoever, FBI, Mossad, whoever. That's what they do, and they make a lot of money out of it. They also make a few other toys as well, warmongering stuff. And they're an interesting company to look up. We'll go through them just a little bit today. I'm actually in a bit of a rush today, so I'll see what I can get through. But we'll just go as quick as we can, pretty much. So you can see here that Plantineer Technologies has basically said they're not going to be involved. Their company itself has copped a lot of flack from things that they do, basically data mining every person on the planet and handing that or selling that information to pretty much the enemies and whatever. Like, whoever pays the highest bid wins the data. That's, the normal deal. So because they've been in so much controversy, I think they've realised that if they come in and back the UK government's plan to introduce digital IDs, that they're probably going to lose a lot of public support, and it might come back to bite them later on. So this is actually monumental, because the UK government just seem to be pushing this through without anyone caring or stopping, any of it. And like, for normal people, what are you going to do? But this is where it gets good. So being this company, I'm just gonna go back a little bit here. So I'm going to shut up for a minute now. So I'm going to play you a short clip, and this will explain who they are, the company that's actually pulled out, and they've said they're nothing to do with the digital ID. I hope they stick to that. Again, I don't really trust like a corporation that's a warmonger. This is just going to explain a little bit of gear.
And boy, have these boys been selling some business. Palantir has landed over $1.3 billion in Department of Defense contracts since 2009. This is for stuff like the Army's Vantage Data Analytics platform, this James Bond-style AI...
And I'll just say credit to Dan Tooney from Good Work. This is his YouTube stuff, so I'm just using this as a bit of an educational thing to show you who this company is that we're talking about.
Satellite computer suitcase, an AI-powered drone system called Project Maven, and Titan, the Army's first AI-defined vehicle, which promises to do things like reduce sensor-to-shooter timelines, reduce soldier workflow burdens and cognitive load, and enable long-range precision fire for the modern battle space. Basically stuff that not only goes vroom vroom and pew pew, but also beep boop beep.
Dan's a funny guy.
But Palantir's government contracts extend well beyond the military. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. contracted Palantir to track outbreak data and set up a system to distribute vaccines. More controversially, Palantir reportedly helped Immigration and Customs Enforcement with all sorts of stuff, including a surveillance system to plan and organize workplace raids on an original contract worth as much as $127 million. During the 2010s, the New Orleans Police Department ran a secretive partnership with Palantir to test predictive policing technology, which could have been named Minority Report if we had any taste. Around the world, Palantir's tech is being used by the Ukrainian military, by the Israeli military for, quote, war-related missions, and by the British government to overhaul the technology behind the NHS, England's state-run health service, which oversees one of the biggest repositories of individual patient data in the world. Research that even I can wrap my noggin around. Whatever Palantir does, it makes them a lot of money.
Palantir stock is booming, absolutely skyrocketing.
Palantir has been a standout this week, surging 22%.
Hugest outperformers of the last year.
Right now, there is no comparable company.
I'm here bravely outside of the offices of Palantir. Their stock rocketed up 340% in 2024, peaking this winter to give them a valuation of over $250 billion. And although their stock price has dipped since then, they remain right up there with the likes of AT&T, IBM, and those hunks over at Cisco. Different from the techies who typically cross my desk.
We built this kill chain, the digital kill chain. How do you defend your country and kill your enemies? Our product is used on occasion to kill people.
So you can sort of see who they are roughly. And the guys who run it are really weird because one's a real lefty and one's a real righty, which is a strange mix, but it seems to work. They get all the contracts. So I'll just let Dan finish. If you are on YouTube, you should have a look at Dan's info. He's like a investigative journalist and he's hilarious. He's real funny.
Two things here, folks. First, I have wet my pants. Second, what?
So you get the idea of that one? All right. So moving on to more info here. So this is the Bank of England is refusing to release documents around the digital currency, the central bank digital currency. So this is the second time that they've been asked to disclose, anything basically about their involvement when they're going to bring it in, what they're doing. And somehow they keep being able to get around the Freedom of Information Act. And they basically cite that it would upset the public if they told us what they were going to do. They'd be, we'd all be very angry. So they said they'd prefer not to release the information, and apparently that's good enough. They can just withhold it because they're big, they're a bank, whatever. So that's slightly concerning. And I think if they, this should be public debate, which doesn't seem to happen much anymore. We just get told what to do, and that's how it is. So pretty disappointing that no one's able to see what's about to come at them in the UK. And this isn't just UK, this is like Australia, everywhere. Everywhere's about to get this stuff thrown down your face, whether you like it or not. And later on, I will cover a few things. They're not exactly foolproof ways to avoid this kind of stuff, but we will just cover there's a couple of old videos I did where I just kind of explain a few things.
So welcome to Orwell's Britain. Labour is pushing digital ID hard, and they say it's going to control migration, but France and Germany have digital ID and they've got record migration, so that's a lie. They also say it's going to control the black market economy, but the whole point of the black market economy is that you don't get asked for your ID, so that's a lie as well. So if it isn't going to do the things that they say it's going to do and why they want it, why do they want it, and why are they using threats to implement it? Starmer said very clearly and menacingly yesterday, you will not work in the UK if you don't have a digital ID. So I won't be able to work, feed my family, house them, over my dead body. Try it, Keir. So we already have a national insurance number. You cannot, without that number, get a bank account, rent a house, hire a lawyer for anything. You can't do anything without a national insurance number. So we have the security that we need to check our ID. So if it isn't about security, what's it about? It's about surveillance and control. It's right out of the UN's Agenda 2030. There was a dry run in COVID. Do you remember COVID, where you couldn't eat out, get on a plane, go to university? For some people, go to work without flashing your QR code on your phone. Well, let's extrapolate that a bit further. You dare to criticise migration or net zero. You dare to say that a man cannot be a woman. By the way, he can't. And you dare to raise the flag and be proud of it. You might find yourselves very quickly via your digital ID penalised, and already we have 35 people a day in the UK who are being arrested for offensive speech. So the next step on from here is digital money. I've been saying it for ages, it's coming. Your wages, your savings, your spending, your travel, all linked to your digital ID. Step out of line, say something they don't like, and they will switch you off. No travel, no car, no spending, no life. This is the Fabian autocrat's wet dream, headed by Tony Blair. And if you agree to it, you are agreeing to shackle yourself to a life without an ounce of freedom henceforth.
So you can see, generally what's going on. I don't know how many people are actually aware of what's going on. It's sort of hard to know because the media doesn't really cover a lot. And the media that does cover it are a little bit fringe, so I don't think it gets picked up very well. And I know that I'm over target at the moment because I keep getting videos pulled down. TikTok just constantly just keeps pulling my videos, putting community guidelines on them for no reason. Of course, I fight that, but I'm so close now to losing an account with close to 20,000 people on it because I'm just doing this. Like, if anyone's seen anything that was offensive in my lives, I'd be interested to see, what goes on. Because I don't know if I get reported or whether it's just AI that's just being a little bit oversensitive. But I have noticed Facebook being a lot better. Facebook seems to have gone from the biggest censor in the world to suddenly just letting anything roll, which I think is fair, like where, democracy kind of runs on free speech and whatever. And obviously there are consequences to free speech. You can't just go around saying stupid crap to people, or you're liable to get, something bad will happen to you. So I get that freedom of speech has its limits, and I think anyone just, with morals and half a brain would know when people say something, whether that is actually offensive and whether they're stepping the line, because I get that. So I know this is all a bit edgy, this kind of content, and that'll happen, but there's nothing but the truth. I'm using valid sources for everything that I show. At the end of this, I will have probably a couple of clips that I've done, but that aren't so much sourced. But at the same time, I can't see why I get pulled for this, apart from, there's pressure. They don't want people talking about this. But the more people who do talk about this, especially online, between friends, family or anyone, the better. The more the word will get out, and the more they have to take stuff down. And, eventually a lot will just get through because, again, this is not being reported on mainstream media properly, if at all, which is pretty disappointing, of course, but it's always been a bit like that. All right, we'll move on to the next bit.
Than the unvaccinated.
Here's Blair again. He's
if we do have to adjust some of the freedoms because
making billions out of this.
Rising pressure from new variants, then it's important at least to ensure that those people who are vaccinated have the maximum freedom they can. And I think that could also be done for travel. Double vaccinated.
And this is
should be much easier to
2024.
come in and out of the country.
This
And
isn't
indeed,
21.
around the world, I think you will find that countries start to distinguish between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. So in Europe, for example, they're going to allow you to travel freely within Europe if you're double vaccinated. You get proper proof of vaccination. I mean, actually, the NHS ex-people have done a good job in the NHS app, but we need to make that interoperable with other systems so that you can use this as proof of vaccination. You're facilitating it. So I think that there may well be situations in which people decide they don't want to make that distinction. But I think you're going to find in many settings, people do want to know if they're going into that setting that the people around them, if they're mixing in close quarters,
This whole
have been
argument
vaccinated.
reminds me of something going back for some years. This is ID cards by the back door, isn't it?
Look, I was then, I remain even more convinced today, particularly with biometric technology, the world will move to biometric ID, and they'll do it because in the end it's better for people. It's not about, look, the amount of information government's going to have on you is going to be minimal compared with what your local supermarket has on you. So
You're supposed to believe that the local supermarket would know more about your finances and who you are than the government. Oh, it's hard to swallow. And again, Tony Blair, he's making billions out of this, so's his son. So everything he says is to promote his new business model, which is pretty shady stuff going on, really. And he keeps claiming that people want this. Well, I don't know. I haven't met many. Maybe there are people who like being enslaved. I'm not sure.
this is a completely sensible way to go, and I think you will find right round the world that people move in this direction because it will facilitate the access to government services. And by the way, in some of the developing countries, it will cut out biometric ID. I mean, as you know, my view is the whole world's getting changed by technology. The big political debate we should be having, we're not really having it, is how do you master this technology and harness it for the public good? But in every single field of our work, our leisure,
For the
way
public
we
good.
interact with each other, technology is going to change everything. So, biometric ID is just one part of a much face this situation in the future. We're going to have to create a global infrastructure to deal with future pandemics, because I think what has happened to us is probably part of a change that is going to be just normal life for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so enough said. He rambled on again. Again, just making money, So you can see some people pushing back. So this is a pub in the UK, and they've thrown up a projector on the side of their building, and, they're trying to do their little bit. So every little bit helps, especially businesses. Businesses obviously have a little bit more sway than the general public, due to, they've got more money generally than Bob down the road or whatever. And they create service and products and whatever. So, more likely to be listened to when businesses come at it. I think even COVID was only opened up because businesses had had enough of going broke. So in the end, it was corporations and businesses that turn things around when the government just can't control themselves and they don't know what they're doing. And they just enjoy, tyranny too much and get excited by it. So, businesses like this, good on them for doing just something. They probably had the boys in blue down there just destroying them. But anyway, now this one's interesting. So this is going to give you an idea. I just got this yesterday, day before, and it's basically a really short video about China's social credit score system, which is all entwined into their digital currencies and whatever. And this will just show you how bad it gets. Like, China's had digital ID running and social credit scores running for a fair few years now. Like, they pretty much had it already before COVID, just by chance. But this is going to give you an idea of how harsh it can be. So, as you can see here, you earn 4 points for getting vaccinated. So I think you start with 1,000 points. That everyone just got 1,000, which isn't very much for a lifetime at all. So you get four points for being vaccinated, while you'll lose 50 points for a single social media post that they deem as disinformation. So 50 points of your 1,000 every time you do that. And the best part about it is, if you need some points back, all you got to do is dob on your neighbours. You get 20 points if you dob your neighbours or family in to the government if you think they were up to something that isn't kosher. So pretty scary stuff, and I think it's worth noting, how other people are already doing this who have had that in play for 5 years. I know China's a little bit different to like maybe Australia and the US, but I think we're all becoming pretty much the same now. So we'll have a look at this one.
Here are assigned a social credit score. It starts with a base of 1,000 points. From there, the maths begin. Chapter 2, Evaluation Criteria number 5. Help those in need who are not your blood relatives for more than 6 months. Add 5 points.
5 points for working for 6 months for free.
15. Being a public nuisance. Deduct 20 points.
Public nuisance, 20. You've only got 1,000. That's pretty scary stuff. Like, it really is. So that's China. And so when I was doing research on that, there was a lot of data and information around, especially around teenagers and the youth, people in their teens to 20s, who are literally on the streets pretty much starving because they've lost all their points. They were on social media, they didn't do the right thing or whatever, and they're literally locked out of the system. So unless people help them, which may or may not be happening, that's really, really bad. That's it couldn't get much worse than starving our own population out because they didn't agree with the party line or whatever. But that's the reality. That's where we're at the moment. And if you think the West is going to be any different and we're just going to be free-loving and, the politicians are just going to have parties with us and we'll all get along, I don't think so. I think the plan has been, probably since 2020, to basically lock our freedoms away. And I don't know why they're sick of us having freedom because, it seems like the best time on the planet, the growth, the golden years, is always when people have more freedom. And people are artistic and you've got philosophers and all that kind of stuff, which is, I saw get deleted when I was growing up. No one cares about art. No one cares about thinking anymore. People just want money and they just want bulk money and do nothing to get it. So that's a different system. That system's not compatible with any other system. I think the greed is just too much, and that's where we're at. So, So these are just a couple of videos I did actually years ago, and they're also focusing around the comments that I used to get, well, I still can get, which is basically, it's never going to happen, all this kind of stuff. So I'll just run through these very quickly and move on to what we've got at the end.
So NAB, Macquarie Bank, going digital. So they've both come out and said the 20th of May they're going to be digital banks, which means that, at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to pull cash out. So they said they're going to keep ATMs for a while, so that's so nice of them. But at the end of the day, Macquarie Bank is a pretty big bank, so is NAB. They're kind of in a partnership, or they can't own each other or whatever. They're all owned by the same mob, Vanguard, BlackRock, it doesn't really matter. It's all a monopoly at the end of the day. But so we got one of the big four in Australia going digital, claiming it's going to fix everything. And the funny thing is, when you read through all their garbage, they actually admitted that people are using cash more than they have in the last few years. Like, obviously, when we're all locked down because of some fucking scamdemic, there's no one's using anything. There was nothing going on. They collapsed the bloody. But anyway, yeah. So big four in Australia. One of them NAB. This month on the 20th of May going cashless. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know what you do, like Tooth Fairy. What are you going to do? For example, yesterday, Mother's Day here in Australia, we went to a market down in a place called Foster, beautiful little place. So what do you do with no cash? Go to a market, not all of them have FSPOS. They don't want to bloody use cards and shit like that, plus the charges you get. So it's all these little things, pocket money, Tooth Fairy, you won't be able to do that. So anyway, my suggestion would be to pull all your money out of NAB and Macquarie. Screw them, You talk with your wallet, they only listen when, it's only listening time when wallets are being pulled out or not. So if you're in NAB or Macquarie Bank, leave them and tell them why. Go into the bank. Because in a week's time, there won't be a bank to go into. So they're closing a shit ton of branches. I think they were saying Western Australia's first with 56 branches closed. So that's a lot of bloody jobs. These idiot corporations, the WEF and all the idiot corporations that fund that shit, I don't think they've thought that we're the people with the money, and once we stop spending money on their garbage, then it's all over. It's over for them, We're not going back to the Stone Age. We can barter, we can trade. Corporations can all get fucked. They're the ones doing all this shit. They want you all cashless, digital, no choice in anything. If you're a naughty boy, no more money for you, we'll just strip your bank account. All that shit's coming. So many hearsayers jump on my channel. I've spoken about this stuff saying, oh, since the 70s I've been talking about it, it's never going to happen. Well, it friggin' well is. So NAB and Macquarie Bank are going digital. So they've both come out and said the 20th of May they're going to be digital banks, which means...
So as you can see, the Australian banks have been shutting down doing this stuff for a while. I might just move forward a little bit.
10-minute blurb, 10-minute blurb.
I'll just cut through some of these.
And my biggest drama with all this is I think there's no more conspiracies left. They've actually played out every single one, and the conspiracy guys were right every time. Funny that, isn't it? Because soon you won't be able to go to the shops. They're making businesses do it too, so you've got to get accredited. So you can't run a business unless you're accredited, because you need a digital ID. They need to know everything about you. And this whole thing, like even like looking at the Iceland digital ID, which is, you know, it's the same as ours, same deal. Like, it's pretty shocking what's going on.
It's about a year old, I'd say.
Reading an Aussies in Iceland, and
bit more.
They was telling me some stuff. It was pretty scary. Like, you can't do anything without your digital ID. You know, for example, like the tax man and everyone else, they have all your information. They don't need a warrant to check, you know, what's in your bank account or what you own. It's all there for them. They can just log in and log out of your life whenever they feel like it, deduct monies maybe you owe or they think you might have owed or whatever. You know, so Clown World's hitting hardcore, and, you know, so be it. Such is life. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, so Iceland, that was about a year and a half ago, that video, and as you can see, Iceland even has the same system of social credit scores and all that kind of stuff already running, so, you know, this isn't just China and no one else is getting it, it's sort of heading there. So I'll just play one more, just, again, these are old, so the idea here is just proving how long this has been going on for, and back when I was doing these, no one cared, or most people just said, I don't know what I'm talking about, and it's not true, so it was pretty random. I'll just get through all the comments.
No longer available. We're going to rip cash. Cash is getting stripped. Cash is no longer king, and they're making sure they're getting rid of it. So 6 years, 60% of ATMs, and the figure that the amount that's left is 6,000 ATMs. You'll notice a theme with the media, 666. It's a constant, but the facts are there. 60% of ATMs are gone. 6,000 pulled out in 6 years. How's that?
Yeah, so it's always like that too. It's just funny. So many media reports, when they do finally report on something, like all the stats were 6, like 666, just constantly. Or they're 60% of banks and 60% of this, and it's just ridiculous. It seems to be a bit of a ritual, and you know, you just look for it. Look for the pattern, because you'll see it. Especially when they talk about something edgy like, you know, digital IDs coming in or whatever. Watch the numbers. It's always the same. It can be 33s and mainly 6s is kind of what they're doing. You know, so they're in your face. It's just ridiculous, which also kind of makes me think that most of the stats are just total BS, that it's not going to be 60% of this and 6, you know, it's just not. So that's just the media for you.
Because what I've learned in the last...
I don't need to call everyone NPCs. That's not really where we're going. So I think I've got to run around and do a few things, so I'm going to cut this one a little bit short, but I'm going to leave you with a video that I made where I have a bit of a solution. Now, this is not going to be a solution for everyone, but if you did happen to want to kind of get away from digital IDs, there's a couple of countries who basically let you be an e-resident. So again, this is old. This is like a year and a half ago, and as you can see, I was just answering someone's question. So I'll put this one through and see if I've got time to do any more. But thanks for watching and subscribing and following and all the rest of it. And I'll catch you on the next one.
But I think in the West, if you just want to hang in the West, there's not anywhere to really just run. Like, you don't really, like, you're not going to get away with doing much. Like, for example, the solution, I'll get to that bit, is leave Australia. All right, that's one. It's pretty hardcore. You know, but if you don't want to stay here and fight, which, you know, is probably a useless thing anyway, really, probably, you know, I don't know, but I think they'll just cause you big dramas in your whole life, and you probably won't be able to live properly if you
deny it and say I'm not getting a digital ID. We can all try as long as we can, but it seems futile, like at the moment anyway. But maybe that'll change. Maybe people will wake up, we'll put pressure on them, they'll leave us alone for 5 minutes maybe. But I highly doubt it. I think they just like teasing us and making us all go mentally ill with stress and all the rest of it. That's their job. So being what that is, you just have to accept it. That's how we deal with things at the moment. And the greedy fuckers are in, and the little man doesn't count for anything anymore, and the family's being destroyed. You know, they're destroyed pretty much all of it. So anyway, back to what I should be talking about. So if you have like grandparents or parents or whatever who came from another country, which, you know, Australia's very diverse, so that's a lot of the population probably hold 2 visas, or at least your grandparents might have come from somewhere like Ireland or Scotland or wherever, you know, India, wherever you came from. So that is one solution, that trying to find a country that's not going to implement it, or at least promise not to implement it, well, you can go and live there if you've got the right kind of visa. Now, there's a few other really interesting ones that I went and looked around, see what I could find. You got 2 places I can find, Ecuador and Palau. I think Palau is just a little island, so not a very big place, but and Ecuador. So they're 2 places you can get e-residency, all right? So you don't have to officially live there, but you can be an e-resident. Now, e-residents, and I know why they do this, they're probably quite, you know, they're poor countries, so they want to pull in some Western dollar, and I don't blame them. Why wouldn't you? Better than starving to death. But either way, e-residency, I've had a quick look, and I don't know how much of a hoop jump it is to actually get it all done, but it looks like just the standard filling out a lot of forms, that kind of thing. And it's probably what you're worth is what matters more. Like if you've got, you know, $500,000 lying around, you could put into like a bank account, kind of cash, or into their system. They'll probably open arms, let you be an e-resident. Now that means that you can live in Australia, but you could have banks overseas, so you could hold your money overseas. Now there's risks obviously with that as well, you know. So, but the whole thing with digital IDs, credit scores, and everything else that's all a part of that one thing, is that they always start with the banks. So the first thing they do is say it's voluntary. Then you'll find as soon as it's implemented, the banks will require digital ID, or you can't bank with them. All right, so that's where it all starts from. That's the first pressure they put on everyone is your money. You know, if you're not in a bank, you're screwed. How do you pay your mortgage? How do you do anything? Unfortunately, that's just the system that everyone ended up with. You know, the bankers, the people who basically we go and fight all the wars for and all the rest of it, those people. So without a bank, obviously you're screwed. But e-residency, it actually looks like a bit of an option. Now, you know, it's that kind of thing that if you wait till too late, then you're probably screwed, because these countries will just clamp down, or they might not. But I think there'd be a saturation point. They'd have a figure in their head of how many people are allowed to be an e-resident of one of these nations, Ecuador and Palau. So if you organise something like that now, then you're ahead of the game, big time ahead of the game. Again, it probably only works for people who have a fair bit of money. Like, I don't think my pissy little bank account would impress them very much. I tend to spend everything I get on whatever I want. You know, you only live once and you can't take this shit with you, so don't hold on to too much too dearly. And I think money is mental illness to me. You know, if I hoarded, I don't know, dog shit, people would think I was crazy. But if I hoard money, I'm looked up to, you know. But I don't really go off that vibe. It's not really what I see. I grew up in a very affluent area when I was really young in Sydney, and the amount of people I know with money, they're not very nice, first up. And so many of them died at 50. Like, dads were just falling off the planet because of the stress, putting in 60-hour weeks. They never saw their kids, and their kids didn't want their money. So anyway, enough about money. I don't like it, you can tell. It just annoys me, and it complicates everything. You only need enough to live on, and that's enough for me. I'm not really a greedy prick. So that goes against people like me, though, because I can't find the exact figure they'll require, but they will require some sort of money, you know. Maybe it could be $500,000 US, I don't know what it is. But anyway, I can't find that yet. You have to actually apply to get all the info pretty much. But that is an option. So e-residency. Go and look it up. Out of the two, Palau and Ecuador, I don't really know the countries very well at all. But in theory, Ecuador is probably a bit bigger, maybe a bit safer. And e-residency might give the option to be able to bolt there later too if you had to. Like if, excuse me, I'm talking to dinner and talk shit at the same time. But yeah, so it could be a really good option because everything else I'm looking at, there's no way out. And once you're in, you're in. And you're not going to be given a choice. This is not, unfortunately this wasn't up for referendum, and even when it was going through the Senate, the digital ID bill, they locked the place down. No reporters, no one allowed in or out, no questions, no debate. So obviously when the government does that kind of stuff, you get a bit suspicious. Well, I do anyway. I get very suspicious. And they do that about these kind of things. The horrible things that people don't want. And I was just doing a video not long ago where Australia has fallen to the top 10 saddest countries in the world. Now that's a bloody disgrace. We're number 6 of the saddest mental health places in the world. How bad is that? And I don't mean just mental health. I mean, what do the people think? So, no one cares. No one's looking after you. And everything they pretend to do for you is not going to be good for you. They're not here to help, I'm telling you. I think everyone's kind of, yeah, so the less dependent you can be on them, the better. Like, for example, I kind of try to self-sustain myself a lot. Alright guys, I've got to wrap this up. That one went blurring on a little bit, but you get the idea. There are some solutions out there maybe. This is all pretty young and early in the piece, so hard to know. But I'll keep people updated if I find more information, especially, solving the problem of how to get around this would be the, most practical kind of thing that I'm trying to find at the moment. I'll let you know. But standard stuff, like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff if you like this kind of content. This will be broken up into a series of probably about 5 or 6 shorts. So if you missed any of it, you can watch this one, or you might even see them as short.